Gaming, and today I'm going to be reacting to another Halo lore video. Where was the Master Chief during Reach? I actually got asked to do this video, and I gotta say it is very, very intriguing just by the title because that is something that I have been wondering myself. So let's get into it.
One of the biggest complaints about Reach and ODST was the fact Master Chief was not present. Yes, I know
Yeah,
he was technically there, but you know what I mean. Right after the battle, Master Chief is awoken out of cryo, and Halo 1 kicks off.
yeah.
So, the big question here is, Master Chief, why the fuck were you taking a nap while other Spartans were dying? Anyway, today we're going to be answering the questions and mysteries of Halo Reach, including where was Master Chief during the Battle of Reach. It's gonna be a fun one, guys. Let's go ahead and get into it. Due to some inconsistencies in the games and the books, there is some question about the following order of events, and it's just easier for me to get that out of the way, so here it is. August 29th, 2552. That was the
Yeah.
second final day of the invasion on Reach before the entire planet was just completely fucked. Noble 6 was tasked with transporting the AI Cortana and delivering her to the Pillar of Autumn. By the time he delivered her, it was now August 30th, the last day ending the battle when Reach had been successfully destroyed. So where was Master Chief? Oh, there he was. Why the fuck is he taking a nap, alright? Reach is being destroyed, Spartans are dying, what the hell? Well, actually, my theory was that this was actually Linda, but that theory was fucked when Marcus Leto, Halo's creative director at the time, confirmed that it was Master Chief, although really it makes a lot more sense that it is Linda. But the very interesting thing about this is that Master Chief
Oh,
is
that's right.
not there, even though that is him. The thing is, this is not canon. It was confirmed that this was just an Easter egg, but no, Master Chief was not in cryo at this time. Before the battle ensued on Reach, before the Covenant had got to Reach, Master Chief was being prepped for a secret mission. The Spartans would go into Covenant space, capture a High Prophet, and barter for truce. No, not for another prophet, for truce, to end the war. Dr. Halsey then introduced Master Chief to Cortana for the first time, who would assist the Spartans via their suits. Reach was then attacked on July 25th. It was August 29th, about a month and a couple days later, that the planet would be eradicated.
So the whole
So the
game
battle
took
was
place for
about
a
a month
month?
long. Now that we have the timeline,
Wow.
let's keep going. Chief was amongst the Epsilon system, where a fleet of UNSC ships would soon leave to assist Reach, which had started becoming invaded. Keyes was disturbed by this news of Reach being invaded and brought Master Chief aside, where he told the rest of Blue Team the disturbing news that the Covenant had bypassed a dozen inner colony worlds going into human space, knowing that Reach was probably much more important than even finding Earth. It was the military planet, it was the heart and blood of the UNSC.
Wow.
Master Chief listened to a distress signal from FleetCom HQ on Reach. Now, there was no doubt at this point that the aliens did in fact find Reach, and hundreds of ships were racing to the planet's orbit. So they haven't landed, they haven't got in the atmosphere yet, but they are certainly going to be there very soon. Captain Keyes said if the shipyards fall on Reach, then Dr. Halsey's prediction of humanity having only months to survive will shrink to weeks.
Dang.
Chief suggested among the space battle that would ensue in the near future that he and his team would board a ship's damaged hull and plant a nuke from within. About 20 minutes later, the Pillar of Autumn was being pursued by 9 Seraphs dodging and twisting around asteroids.
I hate
Cortana
those.
was on board and assisted Captain Keyes' commands to stop all engines and then suddenly do a 180 fire blast of a Mac at the Covenant carrier, which was the real threat here, right behind the Seraphs. 20 seconds later, the Pillar warmed up the Mac solutions, then held smaller 50M guns on the pursuing fighters, then aimed and fired the big gun at the Covenant ship, blasting a hole right through its sides. The ship weaned and crashed into a large rock. Hull broken and fire set it ablaze, a successful destruction. The Autumn turned and returned to its path of Reach,
Yeah.
estimated to arrive in about 20 minutes. It would be faster if there wasn't the possibility for them slip spacing inside the sun. Reach was protected by planetary defense stations that stopped the Covenant fleet from invading and glassing the planet if that were to ever happen, and thankfully they were intact for the invasion. However, they could be bypassed if the generators on the ground were taken out, for if they were, all hell would break free. However, at this time, the Covenant, still on its way to Reach, seeked to destroy the generators but also find the nav database, which was in orbit of Reach. So what is the nav database? Well, it would reveal all human worlds, including Earth, and on top of that, Reach was the heart of the UNSC military operations. So basically, this was a gold mine for the Covenant. If they could take down Reach and get the nav data, that would be really great for them. Along with Captain Keyes, 52 more heavily armed UNSC warships were inbound to Rally Point Zulu, where just moments now, all hell would break loose in space. Cortana counted 314 Covenant ships arrived, and it was about 1 to 3. The Covenant outnumbered the UNSC. The Big Stick, or aka the UNSC's non-nuclear Mac orbital guns we were talking about a moment ago, the stations that could be destroyed if the generators fell, well, 20 Mac guns turned and opened fire on the alien ships, and it reacted with a flurry of solar flare bolts blasting through space. About 30% of the Covenant ships were immediately eradicated to burning hulks of destroyed metal.
Holy
Stations
crud.
moved to protect the orbital guns, but they soon were vaporized by plasma fire. 4 nuclear mines detonated in the center of the Covenant fleet. Dozens of ships lost by their shields, but continued to zip forward onto Reach. The Covenant then unleashed a new devastating weapon from their fleet ship, and it tore through 50 UNSC ships like paper. Then the orbit guns responded with more Mac fires. 16 Covenant ships immediately exploded, then fired again, 18 more Covenant ships tearing to threads. Covenant ships retreated, the remaining UNSC forces did not pursue. So now let's talk about where Master Chief was during this battle and what happens next. But real quick, so where was Blue Team? Well, the Covenant launched hundreds of dropships to Reach's surface, smaller ships that came out of the surviving force that just interacted with the UNSC. Now, officially, they have invaded at this point. Small dropships came into the atmosphere and started landing. What was their mission? Well, to set a ground invasion to overwhelm forces and destroy the planetary defense generators. Meanwhile, Master Chief suggested he split his squad, board the space dock with the nav data, and plant a nuclear mine to ensure that the Covenant won't get the coordinates for all human colonies. Master Chief would then lead around this time an extremely dangerous space op to destroy the station that had the nav data that the Covenant was fighting for.
That sounds a lot like
James
Chief.
would come with Chief. Fred would be Red Team leader, a new team, with Kelly and Joshua ordered to stop the ground invasion with other Spartans and the defense of the generators that were about to be swarmed by Covenant hordes.
Dang.
During this space hop sometime later, Master Chief's Pelican flew by a few very large Covenant cruisers, but they ignored him because the ship seemed, well, very irrelevant for starters, but it also seemed dead. Dead in space, lights off, engines off. So, yeah, it was only Chief, Linda, and James aboard this ship.
Dang.
They floated very close to Gamma Station where the nav data was, then crashed into the station with the ship, destroying their Spartan shields. Now, they did not penetrate the station, for it was actually shut off completely. They discovered that the Dockmaster AI had shut the place up when it detected the unsecured information during the Covenant invasion. Chief saw their Pelican destroyed on impact, engines ruined. The Covenant ships overhead detected Blue Team and moved towards Gamma Station. While on the exterior, in the vacuum of space, Blue Team maneuvered to scan the Covenant ship. A dozen pods burst from 2 Covenant cruisers and fired the pods at the Spartans to then land on Gamma Station on its exterior as well. Elite Warrior, Zero G Space, and Keely fly close to them, and Linda fired upon them. Meanwhile, James was rigging explosives to get into the actual station, and a shower of needler hits landed on his suit. One punctured his jetpack in Zero G, and he went spiraling out of control into space, destined to either suffocate to death or to perhaps return to orbit and die that way. While on the exterior of Gamma Station, pods started to land. Jackals in blue vacuum suits flew out magnetic boots to the station's hull, Chief and Linda received and returned fire, while also jetpacking around. Chief hurled a grenade into a pod. It blew. 100 jackals and about 6 elites advanced towards the Pelican. From within the Pelican, Chief placed grenades at the exterior of the nose by the C-12, an explosive, then jumped off the Pelican and went unnoticed apparently, and landed with Linda in an open pod safely. The advancing forces went inside and they found the C-12 waiting for them and blasted away, killing most of them presumably, but made a hole in the station. Their mission now? Plant the nuke inside the station, destroy the nav data before the Covenant are able to retrieve it. And they navigate around until they saw a firefight with 4 Marines inside the station, where actually Sergeant Johnson, Private O'Brien, Private Bastini, and Private Jenkins were pinned down by plasma fire. Linda attacked the elites, and Chief saw an elite behind him. The elite that attacked Master Chief, they started flipping, tossing, whirling around. His strength was as strong as Master Chief, believe it or not, but Chief managed to get the upper hand, fired the plasma pistol at the elite, killing his shields, then his face, melting his fucking bones. Reinforcements arrived into the bay, 20 more foes of the Covenant. Meanwhile, the Pillar of Autumn was approaching Gamma Station with
a lot going on here.
Chief, and according to the book, Cortana was aboard the Pillar of Autumn at this time.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Covenant ships arrived and fired at the nearby orbital guns. The Pillar returned fire, then the orbital gun, and it tore the ship to shreds. But the plasma from the ship that was destroyed now destroyed 2 orbital guns. The flagship with the incredibly powerful plasma firing capabilities returned and tore a nearby UNSC ship, Herodotus, in half in just a second, and began to effectively, basically, sniper ships from orbit far, far away from the other ships. Keyes commanded Cortana to head straight for the power weapon, for the flagship, and then use thrusters to basically jump out of the way from the oncoming death ray in just the last second. Then ready the Mac gun, they proceeded. Then they were hit. So many died actually because the Pillar of Autumn received a little bit of fire from the death ray. But the Pillar continued. It was flying towards the flagship. It fired 3 rounds of minimal damage to the target, but their shields were down. A long sword with a nuke took off, zipped through space. The Covenant ship fired and shredded the Pillar of Autumn's hull even more. The Pillar of Autumn then once again fired upon the alien ship with anchor missiles, doing very little damage. The nuke was armed on the longsword and then blasted. Somehow they got inside the ship's shields and dropped the nuke, and the flagship, trapped in its own shields, basically was completely melted and eradicated and exploded all at the same time. Now, being free, the Pillar of Autumn would go make contact with ground forces. The ground side reactors at this point were being taken, and basically the entire defense system, the gate, if you will, the wall of Reach, was about to fall. Then at that moment, the Covenant re-entered Reach's orbit. They were back, anticipating the fall of the stations, which we will talk about soon. The Covenant at this point was getting prepared around orbit to enter and begin the glassing. Meanwhile, back on Gamma Station during the firefight with the Covenant and the 4 Marines with Master Chief and Linda, Chief opened a comm channel with Sergeant Johnson and the other Marines, then assisted killing more Covenant. Chief started piloting a brand new Pelican that they found within the station, and he gave cover to the others. Thousands of Covenant began to advance into the station, all looking for the nav data, which they all jumped into the Pelican, then eventually found the nav database core. It was a cube of about the size of your thumb, and he grabbed it and pointed his assault rifle at it point blank and shot it 3 times. Mission completed. The Pelican navigated through Gamma Station fighting hordes of Covenant when during combat, a bolt of plasma came around, struck Linda in her back, then 2 in the chest, a 3rd in the head. Linda was pulled inside the Pelican, but seems like she was completely knocked out. Sergeant Johnson took over flying while Master Chief inspected and saw that Linda had flatlined. She literally died right here. So at this time, Noble Team was dealing with their own troubles, and then we have the Pillar of Autumn flying around figuring out what they need to do, going back to Gamma Station to rescue Master Chief, whom is now holding Linda on a pelican trying to escape the Gamma Station. Mission successful. They destroyed the nav data, so that's all good. But down on the ground, now Frederick, leader of Red Team, yes, the Fred from Blue Team, right? He was put in charge of Red Team with Kelly, again, another member of Blue Team, as we know in Halo 5. But
Yeah.
also Joshua was a part of Red Team, and there was actually other Spartans too, but they were in charge of defending the orbital defense generators. So when they were initially sent down from orbit of Reach down to the surface, well, Bravo 001 was shot. It's actually seen in the Halo Reach multiplayer map. Fun lore there. That's actually the ship that was shot down. This ship being shot down here, this Pelican being destroyed, resulted in the death of 4 Spartans. Others were wounded. Fred split the surviving Spartans up with all different objectives here, but as we know, the facility was eventually overrun and they had to keep retreating with thousands of Covenant coming after them. They were just overwhelmed. Even though there were several Spartans defending the generators, it was too many for them. And unfortunately, at this time, someone hit a button and a lot of friendly fire occurred, killing off Charlie Company. It was basically like the Alamo, honestly, but with assault rifles, with a lot of accidental friendly fire bombings. Anyway, Joshua, Kelly, and Fred, and 6 wounded Spartans and a few Marines reached a rally point in a Warthog and met at Castle Base, where they retreated deep underground. Now, it is here where Fred and his team are eventually trapped under the surface of Reach for a few weeks until, well, we'll come back to that in a second. So now it is August 30th, 2552. This is really the day that Reach falls and is kind of forever just destroyed, at least until it's resurrected about 37 years later, but that's for another video. Anyway, so around this time, Noble Team is falling one by one, as with many squads here on Reach. Many Spartans died. I made a video about that, how many Spartans died. Certainly check that out, link in the end of this video. But anyway, so after escaping Gamma Station, Master Chief boarded the Pillar of Autumn, and he immediately found the closest cryo chamber and threw Linda into it. And this is why I say that it makes a lot of sense that Master Chief was not actually in the cryo that we see at the end of Halo Reach, but really that makes much more sense for that to be Linda's dead body than anyone. But anyway, a little time passes. Debriefing news was that the PlanetSide team was overwhelmed. Not really sure if they're dead or not. The Covenant Armada and reinforcements have slipped in, and Reach was doomed. It was destroyed and glassed to hell.
That was
Master
sad.
Chief wondered that maybe he was the last Spartan alive. And with the lack of information, without knowing very much during all this chaoticness, during the entire fall of an entire, basically a civilization, a whole colony being destroyed, the heart of the UNSC where warships were being created, Master Chief seriously wondered that he could very well be the last Spartan alive in the galaxy. And basically that the Pillar of Autumn decided to take off and fly away. And then about 3 weeks later, the Starship would come into Installation 04, and that would kick off Halo 1's beginning. Linda would be later recovered and come back to life. Oh, also, back to Fred, Kelly, and Joshua, as well as Dr. Halsey. They were all still trapped under Reach's surface. But Master Chief, as seen in Halo's First Strike, which happens between Halo 1 and Halo 2, Master Chief would go on to be a complete badass and destroy hundreds of ships and do a bunch of crazy stuff. He would basically do a bunch of missions, but one of these missions between Halo 1 and Halo 2, Master Chief would come to rescue Fred, Kelly, and Joshua about a week and a half after Halo Combat Evolves.
That's awesome.
Well,
that was pretty cool. I did not expect that video to be that long. But yeah, it was very, very weird, but like I can't foresee like the people, like the higher up people being like, hey, there's bad stuff going on at Reach, but we want you to go take care of this real quick. Like I can't really see that, especially, I think that they would need all those burdens that they could get on Reach, especially with like everything that was like going on. And I do agree, it makes sense for it to be Linda than it is for it to be Chief, because then we all know in like the 5th game, we see Linda alive and well, and she's a playable character. So I kind of feel like it was a little bit weird and odd for it to be Chief and Blue Team, Red Team, whatever, um, to be doing this other task when Reach, being big as it is, and massive in meaning and all of that, and like the heart of the UNSC and all this and blah 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 blah, they don't send Chief and the rest of the Spartans to go help them. I find that very hard to believe. But I actually have First Strike. I have not read it yet, so I might do that. I might do that. That is on my TBR list. So anyway, thank you so much to the person who commented and said that I should watch this. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. If you guys have any other videos you guys want me to react to, comment down below and let me know, and I will definitely do them. If you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure to smash the like button because it'll help out the channel tremendously. Comment down below on if you want me to do any more reaction videos or what video games you guys would like me to try out. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I post videos so you do not miss me playing any more video games or doing any more reactions. I'll see you guys soon. Bye everybody.